All right, hi guys. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We are here with Malak Saddy, and she is with the Center for Discovery and also has a private practice here in Dallas. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your practice, what brought you into this, and let us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Well, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for reaching out and taking the time to learn a little bit more about eating disorders. I've been a dietitian for almost 10 years, and I'm new to the Dallas area.
Okay.
I'm actually from the Midwest, in Michigan, and came here about 3 years ago and came to work with Center for Discovery at their residential facility in Plano.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was living in Chicago working at their facility, but I came into the field. I come from a strong Lebanese American household, and culture and food and teaching is like something that has always kind of been around, and so it just made sense for me to become a dietitian. I absolutely love what I do. I really have the best job in the world, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have to work with my clients and get to kind of help guide and support them. So so I've been working with eating disorders specifically for the about last 7 years.
Okay. So, what age group do you work with primarily?
So that's a great question. So at the residential facility at Center for Discovery, I work with adolescents specifically, both boys and girls.
Okay.
And then in my private practice, I work with children, adolescents, and adults.
Okay, very good. Well, and I'm going to be totally transparent. This is something so new for me. I mean, I understand what I know, and which isn't a whole lot.
Sure.
And so there might be a lot out there that really don't understand eating disorders. So we're going to just kind of talk, and I've got some questions. Please, if you have any questions as we talk, that you want to ask about something, again, if you decide you don't want to put it out on the live feed, please, you can private message us, and we'll get your info on the website, on the Facebook page,
Sure.
so that you guys can go back and check it out. Any information, if you have, that we can get to the parents, whatever, that we can help them help their children at whatever age it may be.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and just kind of start talking about the primary things that come up.
Sure. So I think one of the things that I've noted, or sometimes the question that kind of comes up is like, what is an eating disorder and who may be affected by it? And I think it's important to recognize that eating disorders can affect both men and women. Transgender, LGBTQ community, it is non-discriminatory, and it really can affect people of all different ages as well. And so it's not just the traditional, I think a lot of people may think that it's just like a thin white woman's disease, but it's really not. And that it can kind of cover, I mean, anybody can have it. So one of the things that I think that is so important for us to recognize is you can't judge somebody based upon their size as if they have an eating disorder. So just because somebody may be in a thinner body or a larger body, you just never know what they're kind of struggling with. And so I think just, if anything, like that, eating disorders don't discriminate. And also, eating disorders has one of the highest mortality rates.
Really?
Any other psychological disorder, higher
Wow.
than substance abuse and drugs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of okay. So why don't we ask this? So you obviously said a while ago that eating disorders do not just affect the women. So what is it if a parent with their child suspects or thinks either male or female?
Sure.
They're not sure. How do they find out? Do they go to the child? Do they get professional help first by asking questions? What's the first step that a parent can take if they're concerned for their child?
Yeah, so eating disorders typically come as they could be co-occurring. So anxiety and depression or low self-esteem may be kind of at the bottom of it. And as a method of control, some of the clients that I work with will utilize their eating patterns to kind of controlled parts in their lives. And so some of the signs and symptoms that you can kind of look out for. So there's physical signs that you may notice in your loved one. So maybe like some discoloration of like the skin, their hair thinning, just like brittle nails, dry skin, the loss of their period if they're female, the menstrual cycle. And you also may notice some fatigue, maybe increased GI disturbances. So those are maybe some physical symptoms, and then some signs that you may notice is maybe somebody going quickly to the bathroom after a meal, somebody who feels like that they need to like exercise compulsively in order to burn the foods that they ate, so to burn calories that they had earlier in the day, wearing large oversized clothing, what else? And of course draw a blank.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I think things that I would say, like things that your child normally would, foods that they moved away from that they normally would have eaten. So maybe noticing a change in their behavior.
Okay, like what they used to eat and they're not eating anymore, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Isolating, getting angry quickly, because when they're restricting foods or engaging in behaviors, it can feel like there's so many mood dysregulations because their brain isn't nourished.
Okay.
And so that's why kind of referencing even back, like we really don't, anybody can suffer from an eating disorder. It doesn't, you can't look at somebody's weight or size and say, oh, they don't have an eating disorder.
Sure, okay.
So I think if you notice something that feels kind of a little bit off,
pay attention.
Yeah. And then the first thing is to go and maybe meet with a therapist and a dietitian. Find a dietitian and a therapist who specialize in eating disorders. I think is really important, because eating disorders is it is a specialty. So it is important to find somebody who really kind of is aware of that background.
So, and they kind of help find out if there's like an underlying issue that's causing this. Is that typically what happens, or is it, again, I don't know. Could it be peer pressure? Can that cause, especially in girls that, they have to look picture perfect, that kind of thing? I mean, is that something that could push, the eating disorder?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that peer pressure, bullying, even sometimes divorce or a trauma or moving to a new school or moving to a new house, things that can kind of feel like just maybe a little bit out of the ordinary, something that isn't kind of normal. But especially in today's day and age, social media and the sense of the ideal of perfectionism around the way that we look, and especially even in our food choices, I think is so prevalent. There's a lot of studies that have been done about like how Western, like the commercials and TV media has influenced our eating patterns.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Well, here I'll ask this one. What is an all foods fit philosophy?
Yeah.
So to explain that one.
So I'm a very firm believer in an all foods fit philosophy, and basically kind of what that is that we move away from the labels of foods as like good or bad or healthy or unhealthy. And so if we can look at food as like a neutral, like all foods fit, every food is good for us. There are some foods, yes, that have more nutrients than others, but all food is there to help nourish us, and food also brings us together. It brings us together in celebration and sorrow, in enjoyment. And so how do we kind of, what I try to do is how do I rebuild that relationship with food, and looking at it as just food rather as something that somebody may not be allowed to have or allowed to have.
Yeah.
So like moving away from the sense that I have to punish myself or feel guilty or shameful if I eat a certain food, or if I didn't work out, or if I didn't like use a laxative or diet pill or something to make up for it. So there's different types of eating disorders.
Okay.
And so some of the most, maybe the ones, I'll just name off like four of them. So there's anorexia nervosa. And so with anorexia, there's the sense of a desire to change their body to be thinner. There's strong body distortions, and there's restricting usually happening.
Okay.
So it's either restricting of calories or specific like food groups. And then with bulimia, there is maybe binging or purging behaviors that are happening. Now, one thing I definitely want to note is that at any point with any of the diagnosis, there is no weight requirement. So somebody in a larger or fat body can have anorexia.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so bulimia has some sort of compensatory behaviors as well, whether, again, it's binging or purging or just one or the other. And then there's binge eating, and binge eating is there's kind of a sense of lack of control around food, but there is no compensatory behavior. So there's nothing that we're engaging in afterwards, but there's such a strong sense of like guilt and shame.
Okay.
And then the last one is ARFID, which is like kind of, I like to describe it as like the picky eater syndrome, in the sense of like that there is a strong anxiety around like food itself.
Okay. And so did you say ARFID?
Mm-hmm. ARFID.
A-R...
Avoidant restrictive ARF food intake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Disorder.
Okay.
ARFID. Yes.
Okay.
So it's a sense of strong anxieties around food, but there is no body distortions.
Okay.
So it's like that there's a desire to gain weight, or like they're okay with their body changing, but there's such a strong anxiety around eating the food.
Okay.
So
on your website, do you have all of this information that a parent can go and take a look at if they want to dig a little bit deeper, just to understand some things and see? So we'll make sure that we get her website on the Facebook, and you guys can go take a look and get whatever information you need. And then if they choose to reach out to you, you have an email address there also?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she'll have an email address. We'll make sure that we put it out there also. So
and there's assessments that you can do too, like on one of the websites that we'll share, there is an assessment that you can take to see if like where you fall,
okay,
or if you have questions like, do I have an eating disorder or not? And so
do you see a lot of people that come in and say, I think I have?
Yes.
And you're able to walk them through whether they do or they don't, or if it's just something that's going on that you're able to just kind of, walk them through and get past that kind of thing?
Sure. I mean, yeah, and I think it's really hard and scary to like actually admit and verbalize, I have an eating disorder, because there is such a stigma and shame around mental health. And so unfortunately, by doing things like this and advocating and bringing awareness, I think is so helpful. But I think it's really scary to kind of take that first step.
Sure.
And I think even in my position as a dietitian, sometimes dietitians can kind of get a bad rep, right? We're working with our clients around food, and working a little bit with body image as well, but they've been, maybe some of our clients maybe have been using food so long as a method of control, and then to have a dietitian come in can feel really scary, as to be like, well, what is he or she going to do with my food intake? And by any means, that's not something that we want to do. We really want to help, rebuild that relationship and empower our clients and them to make their own food decisions.
Gotcha. So, all right, so this question here, my child is in a larger body and gets teased at school, and my pediatrician said they need to lose weight. What should I do? How do I handle this?
So you'll notice, I've been kind of saying it a bit, but I've been referring to it more so as somebody in a larger body or somebody in a fat body. I want to remove the stigma and the shame around the word fat, and really kind of move away from the sense of saying that somebody is obese or overweight, and really kind of identifying it for what it is versus like adding more shame, shame around it. So I think the most important thing is like our children, whether it's our own or our nieces or nephews or the people that we babysit for, like kids look up to adults so much. And I think it's really important that we role model body positivity and role model what it's like to feel empowered with the body that we have, rather than to shame it. So one of the things I like to tell some of my clients Or even my parents, it's like instead of saying, God, I hate my thighs because they're so fat, thinking of it as, I love my thighs because they are so strong, because they allow me to walk up the stairs, because they allow me to play soccer, they allow me to dance. And how do I bring it back to like thanking my body for what it does for me rather than shaming it?
Yeah, I love that. How do they react to things like that? I mean, I can just see a little girl or a little boy feeling, oh, I'm empowered by that. That's got to be empowering.
And I think it definitely is, it can be really strong and really scary, because for so long society has made us feel in a sense that our bodies may be unworthy, unworthy of love, unworthy of kindness, unworthy of relationships. And to begin to rebuild that relationship takes time. And so it can be really hard and scary, but taking that first step is, I think, honestly probably the hardest part.
Sure. So say somebody at school, say a fifth grader, or I'm sorry, a ninth grader,
Sure.
and say she feels that one of her friends has an eating disorder.
Sure.
So does she? How would she handle that? Does she go straight to the person, her friend, and talk to her, or does she bring it attention, to a counselor, because you don't want to throw, as a ninth grader, your friend in front of a bus,
Sure.
kind of thing, but you're concerned. So how would you suggest, if we've got kids out there watching, how do they handle that with their friends?
I mean, it is really hard. It's scary because you see somebody that you love and you care for struggling, and it could be a really scary thing. So I think most important is just let them know that, hey, I see that you're struggling. I see that you're going through a hard time, and I just want you to know that I'm here for you. Because then that allows that person to kind of come to them if they feel comfortable. I think if the concerns are like significant, to go and speak to a counselor for sure, or if they're comfortable with their parents, to reach out to their parents and be like, hey, I'm worried about so and so, I'm not sure what to do. But I think most important is just like letting them know that they are seen, they are heard, and that you are there to support them. Mm-hmm. And so I think that simple connection of just saying, I see that you're struggling.
Connectedness is everything. It's everything.
Much.
It truly is.
Yeah.
So, so we'll ask this one here. It says, what are some red flag behaviors to look out for if I am concerned that my loved one or someone I know is struggling? And we kind of just addressed that a little bit, but say it's an adult. Mm-hmm. I mean, how is it the same? Obviously it's the same thing, but I'm sure it's a little different as adults.
Yeah.
So how would you handle that?
Suggest? No, it is. It's very tricky, right? Because and sometimes even adults can develop the eating disorders later on in their lives, in their 30s or 20s, even 50s. And so again, there isn't a time frame or timeline of when an eating disorder can occur. But I do think even with adults that simple connection of like reaching out, I think it's a little bit harder with adults because, right, it's their choice to reach out for that help or not. But I think most important is that I want to tell like the adults is that I'm not giving up hope, or I'm not giving up on you. Like, I'm going to consistently be here even when you feel like you are unworthy of that support.
Okay. So you said that it doesn't always start as youth, that it can start as an adult. So again, I know everybody's different and every situation is different, but what are some of the situations that could cause an adult to start having an eating disorder?
Sure. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I've seen it in the sense, again, honestly, if they've been through a divorce, or even bullying happens later on in life too, or as we continue to age. But I honestly feel like with it, sometimes, especially with adults, it's more of the pressure, the social media pressure and the career pressures of like attaining these expectations that sometimes just feel so unattainable. Also, pregnancy can affect it. Hormonal changes can shift. So maybe after a pregnancy, things just may not feel very similar, or like may not feel the same as they were in the past. So I would definitely say that maybe red flags are very similar to those of like adolescence, honestly. I think it just becomes sometimes maybe a little bit harder is to sometimes getting them into the door versus like adolescence if like a parent is kind of requiring it.
Sure. And so pretty much everybody is on their own journey where, I mean, some just could get through the process and I don't know, I'm just asking again, say 3 months or 6 months, could it take years? Is it just a different journey for everybody?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think it really is. It takes, everybody kind of, it depends, but it also depends on too, like how long the eating disorder has been there. I think, you know, with eating disorders is it doesn't happen overnight. You know, it progresses, and just the same way that eating disorders kind of build up, it takes time for recovery. And so we've seen recovery happen in, 6 months to 2 years to 7 years. It really does just depend. But I think the most important thing is making sure that you are working with a team. And so as I am a dietitian, I require my clients, especially in my private practice, to have a therapist, because I cannot do my job without my team, and vice versa. So how do we help support, that client the best way possible? So also having a psychiatrist if need be, a medical doctor as well, and just really good support all around.
So this is a question, and I guess I'm just thinking out loud. So for young men, young boys,
yeah,
I guess as society we don't think that a young man, and I mean middle school, high school, even in college, that they could actually have an eating disorder. So how do you address that? I mean, how do you even see that, in a young man?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Especially in like high school and middle school when they're wrestling, and there's such a focus and such an emphasis around attaining a specific weight in order to be in a certain class. But honestly, I see there's so many similarities. Like you can bring honestly a case, and I can't tell the difference sometimes if it's male or female, because they're very
so alike.
Absolutely. I think maybe a slight difference I may notice is that with males, instead of maybe a desire to be thin, but it's a desire to be muscular and to have
leanness.
Yeah, that fitness aspect of it. But I think that, especially with eating disorders, is it can quickly go. People a lot of times come to me and they're like, I just wanted to get healthier. I wanted to make a resolution, and I was doing it with my friend or my mom, and it started off with good intentions and slowly became, an obsession and distortions. And so it really can come from the best of intentions, but our minds can really kind of make things feel so irrational.
Sure, so healing the mind.
Absolutely, and that's why the food part is so important, right? Like, so when our body is malnourished, our brain begins to shrink, and when our brain shrinks, the prefrontal cortex struggles to process those emotions and those feelings.
Okay, so that's again when you see the videos or whatever, the movies, when you see somebody standing in front of a mirror and they're not thin, but they think that they look very, very thin. So is that what you're talking about with the frontal lobe, the distortion, all of that part of it? Absolutely. It feels so real that we may see them in different body shapes, but to them it feels like, but I feel fat, but I feel like this is just whatever. So it's that fear, and again that mind tricks that the brain can play. Wow.
But that's again, how do you combine the therapeutic aspect with the dietary? So when I nourish the brain, I'm more able to process the emotions and the feelings that are coming with it and able to handle it.
Wow. So any other advice that you might have for the moms and dads out there, or grandmas or anybody, that is concerned for their loved one?
I think is just to never give up hope, and never lose faith, because it's really, really hard to support loved ones who are struggling with an eating disorder, but to know who your own support system is and to reach out to them when you need it, because it's not something that you should have to do alone. And to have, I think, that unity and that sense of comfort can be so helpful. It's kind of like, I feel like a little bit of a tag team. So when one person kind of feels a little like hopeless or scared, somebody else can kind of step in and help. And so there is a really high success and recovery rate. People do fully recover, and this is something that is treatable with support and support.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the homes, because I know you guys, how many do you have? How many centers?
I think, total we have about 55, but that's including residential facilities and PHP facilities.
Okay.
So day programs as well. Here in Texas, we have 2 facilities located in Houston and in Plano and Dallas. And then we also have PHP, which is partial housing hospital programming in Dallas, Austin, and Houston as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so basically we look at the continuum of care. So maybe somebody goes to a residential facility and then steps down to a PHP. So when they slowly transition, there's higher success rates. And so the adolescent facilities, we treat both male and female. And then we have adult facilities as well that treat female only. And then we are located all across the country, California, Connecticut, Virginia.
So may I ask for the men, where
Yes.
do you have like separate treatment centers for them also, for them to go to?
That's a good question. So for our adolescent, it's all together. So our houses, because they're houses, it's a really small milieu and a small group. So we take 6 to 8 clients.
Okay.
So it's a nice intimate environment. It's a home setting, so it helps kind of create what that real life situation kind of will look like. And so the men are separated. The adolescent boys are separated from the females, but they all group and
they all go work together, different things like that. So
Absolutely.
I'm sure you have dietitians and chefs come in and work with the clients. Is that something to show them how to eat healthy? This is a healthy way to eat and enjoy your food. Is that something through the homes?
Yes, absolutely. So we make the foods, we prepare the foods, and actually the clients get to help prepare the foods as well. So I think it's really important not only to rebuild their relationship, but to get into the kitchen and see like what do things kind of taste and smell like? Is cooking something that I enjoy? A lot of times we may see that our clients will cook and prepare and bake foods for everybody else but themselves. So the sense of like, I want to feed and help everybody else, but not myself. So that actually is a red flag behavior. So getting them into the kitchen and having them like prepare the meal and then eat it is also something that's really important.
Very nice. Very nice. So I'm going to ask, how much time do we have?
7:27.
Okay. So again, if you guys have any questions after, please feel free, if you come back and you watch it, and if you just want to jot some questions down, we can come back and re-answer them, or if you feel like you want to just reach out to Malak, personally, just please send her an email, whatever you're comfortable with. And I just want to say thank you guys for being here with us tonight. Thank you so much, Malak. We just appreciated your time, and if there's anything else that you think that you've got to share with the parents that it wouldn't be unconfidential, that we can put out on the page, just let us know. We'll get it out to you guys. And other than that, is there anything else left that you can think of that that we can say to the parents?
I mean, I think if anything, like if you just have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I think the scariest part is like not knowing, and so I am more than happy to take any questions and help guide you into the right direction, and to help get you the team and support that you need. So.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, guys, thank you. This is we're all done here for tonight, and we will see you guys next month. Thank you. Good night.